Here are 6 moments that proved anything can happen on a stage. Starting with 1. When Keith Moon made a bang on national television. The Who were invited to perform on the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour in 1967. It was there that drummer Keith Moon saw this as an opportunity to pack his drum kit with explosives. No agreements, no anticipations. Just a blast that singed Pete Townshend's hair and sent shrapnel flying into the audience. Moon sat behind his kit looking genuinely delighted. Townshend stood there partly shocked about what transpired, and somewhere in America millions of television viewers put down their dinner forks and reconsidered everything they thought they knew about rock and roll, as this was a jaw-dropping moment. 2. Ozzy Osbourne bit the head off a bat without realizing what actually happened. It was 1982 in Des Moines, Iowa, during Ozzy's Diary of a Madman tour, when a young fan threw a bat onto the stage. Ozzy, assuming it was a rubber prop, picked it up and bit its head off in front of a screaming arena. To his surprise and many others, it was not a rubber prop. A fan thought it was a good idea to take something from his high school's science department. But you can imagine what happens when you don't get the memo on this one. Ozzy was immediately rushed to receive a series of rabies injections, which somehow only added to his legend rather than diminishing it. This bat story became one of the most famous animal stories in heavy metal history. 3. James Hetfield walked into a fireball he never saw coming. It was during a 1992 Metallica show in Montreal. Guitarist and vocalist James Hetfield was standing in the wrong place at the wrong time during a planned pyrotechnic sequence and was engulfed by flames mid-performance, suffering second- and third-degree burns before the show was stopped. At the moment, the band members didn't know the severity of what had happened, so they continued to play. But they decided to go with a replacement vocalist, which did not go over well with a crowd of tens of thousands who had specifically come to see their band Metallica. If you're getting a Blues Brothers feeling and rawhide comes to your head, you're not alone. Hetfield eventually made a full recovery and went back on the road, because apparently being set on fire is not a sufficient reason to take a break. 4. Legendary Bob Dylan got booed off a folk stage for playing rock, and nobody was having it. There's no doubt by 1965, Bob Dylan was the undisputed king of American folk music. His following was hug, as he was a generation's voice who was known by many as a protest singer or a poet with a guitar. When he walked onto the Newport Folk Festival stage and launched into a rock and roll electric set, the crowd that had worshipped him immediately erupted in boos and shouts of outrage. Dylan wasn't going to just walk off the stage. He had other plans. Despite every single boo he played on, he would finish his set and walk off, and within a few years the entire world agreed he had been right and the crowd had been wrong. They say the customer is always right, but when it comes to an audience, this one went down as a real-life lesson fail. That is the most expensive lesson an audience ever learned in real time. 5. Milli Vanilli's backing track skipped live on stage, and they were caught lip-syncing. During this time, Milli Vanilli was getting a lot of radio play. Everyone knew their songs. What people didn't know was they weren't exactly being transparent about their artistry. During a 1989 MTV-sponsored show, the backing track for Milli Vanilli's massive hit began to skip and repeat the same lyric over and over, while the duo stood frozen on stage, unable to do anything but watch their entire carefully constructed illusion collapse in front of a live audience. They eventually ran off stage, leaving the crowd standing there in the kind of confused silence that only comes from witnessing something genuinely inexplicable. Implications from this rang out like a bell, and the following year their Grammy was revoked. The truth came out that they were exposed as having never sung a single note on any of their recordings, and the whole catastrophe became one of the most spectacular public unravelings in pop music history. Number 6. David Bowie killed Ziggy Stardust mid-concert without warning. At the end of a sold-out show at Hammersmith Odeon in 1973, David Bowie walked to the microphone and casually announced to a packed arena that this would be the last show the band would ever do. The audience had no idea what to think as the shock reverberated through the entire building. The surprise to all of this was nobody on Bowie's team, none of his bandmates, and certainly none of the fans had any idea this announcement was coming. Bowie had simply decided in the middle of a tour that the character he had created, Ziggy Stardust, was over. The character he had built from nothing, the alter ego that had made him one of the most famous people on Earth, was retired on the spot with one sentence. It was like having a successful run at your job and leaving the next day. So here's what I keep coming back to every time I go through this list. Every single one of these moments happened because Either something went horribly wrong or someone made a decision in real time with zero warning. So after all this time, are people still talking about these moments? Or do they just remain Google searches and YouTube videos? Was there anything you ever saw at a concert that was interesting or memorable?